And we're bringing in someone who's going to be at Decatur High School tonight. And it's going to be a fun night, Jason. It's you and Jess for Decatur and Tormenta, right?
Yeah, friendly between two teams in the state. I think both are going to take the opportunity to play some younger players, give some players who haven't had as much time in the regular season, whether USLW League or WPSL, give them a chance to get on the field tonight. So a really good celebration of the women's game tonight in Decatur.
Looking forward to it. Nick, start the discussion off with Jason about Atlanta United here as we are pedal down here on a Friday in hour number 2.
All right. Rob's got his win, right? So going forward now, let's so close. I almost let the inner voice win. So we have a group of committed players who are here. Let's talk about what you're seeing from the committed, loyal Atlanta folks who are actually rostered and ready to play coming up in this next Atlanta United game. What are you seeing out of this squad?
Honestly, not anything dramatically different than what we saw before. I think what it is you've gotten a little bit of success and you've been able to build some confidence. You know, like the way that they're playing, you haven't had a whole lot of time to make dramatic changes. These things don't happen overnight. I don't think you're looking for dramatic changes. I think you're looking for little things right now to get results out of what you have to work with. And what you have to work with, and especially in this game on Saturday night, you're not going to have a designated player number 9. You're not going to have Thiago Almada as a number 10. So how can you overcome that and create chances and convert them? That's what this game comes down to, right? You know, I mean, we can go through game models and identities, and this much possession is good, and this much is bad, and this much pressing is good, and this much is bad. It's about creating opportunities and converting them, however you do it. And I talked about it last night on AST about Argentina. You know, Argentina and what they do, they're not married to one way of playing. They can score a goal like the second goal, which starts on the back line and connected through 5-6 different players and ends up in the back of the net. But they can also just straight up go over the top on you and score goals that way. You know, they will take what the opponent gives you and exploit it. They can play pretty much any way that you want to play. Atlanta United's not quite there yet, but you have to, in this case, and I think with this group that you have to work with, you have to lean into a little more direct play. You know, you've got Daniel Rios, you've got Jamal TRA up top. They can go up there and either make the runs in behind, which is something I think Rios is really good at. He's been on the same page with Brad Kazan a lot as of late. Like, go back to the first goal against Houston. It's, you know, Brad sets up Rios for a 1v1 essentially, and it doesn't come off initially, but Rios, because he's so smart as a soccer player, ends up jumping the passing lane, creating the turnover, staying alive, putting in the rebound. TRA is so good at his vertical leap. You can play a ball up, and you're not even asking TRA to go up back to goal. You're asking him to get a running start where he can jump out of the building and win a header and create something. I think Atlanta wants to build up the play and connect the dots, and they can pass, and this is a very good passing team. This is a very good possession team. But without your number 10 and without that DP9, you might have to go over the top more, and especially against St. Louis, who is going to step up and press you. If you try to build out of the back, they're going to try to take the ball away from you, and they don't really have much else. So if you take that away from them by skipping the lines a little bit, playing a little more direct, if it's Rios, if it's TRA, kind of sending them into channels with long balls, and then winning the ball back in that half, you've got a game plan that can work here. This is a St. Louis team that is definitely beatable on the road. And even without Almada, I think you can do the things that will make life difficult for St. Louis. Now, all that being said, you got to execute. And that's what it comes down to. And they've been executing in 3 of the last 4 games pretty well. So got to find a way to continue to do that.
Jarrett for Jason on a Friday.
Yeah, we've seen this St. Louis team kind of, I guess, come back down to earth in the last calendar year. It's just regression to the mean after last year to this year. When you do, when stuff doesn't come off, against St. Louis. Looking at what we've seen from this team, how vital is that moment of counter pressure where you can try and force the St. Louis team instead of just getting the ball out, which sometimes you live to fight another day. But how big can that counter pressure be to try and force them into a mistake, which they've been prone to?
Yeah, counter pressure is the key for this team, in my opinion. I think the general conversation with Rob Valentino taking over is so focused on the direct play and transition moments on the ball. I think it's the transition moments defensively that are the keys. You've got to create those turnovers. And look, that first goal against Houston is a little bit of a microcosm of it, where it's a ball over the top for Rios. He doesn't win it initially, but he continues to press and try to win the ball back, and he does. You have to do that in the attacking half. Now, St. Louis isn't going to give you as many opportunities to do it because it's like they're allergic to actually holding the ball for any period of time. They're going to just launch it as far and as fast as they can. So you've got to try to prevent them from doing that. The more passes they have to connect in their own half, the more dangerous life gets for them. So it's a little different pressure, in my opinion. You're not necessarily trying to win the ball back in some of those moments. Pressure can take on a lot of different forms. In this case, in my opinion, I think if you can not give them the long ball, not necessarily go diving in, and if they beat you, if they step past you, they win the dribble, they win the duel, then they can launch. You don't really want that. Just don't let them play the long ball. Make them go side to side. They don't like doing that. They're not comfortable doing that, and they're going to give you a gift. So it's a little bit different kind of pressure. Again, it's taking something away as opposed to overcommitting. This is a St. Louis team that is like Red Bulls vintage 2019 or so, in that the Red Bulls today have the ability to play a little bit. You've got a player like Forsberg who, when they have the ball, he can make things happen, but he fits into their pressing style. St. Louis, I think more than anything, they've just been found out at this point, and they're doing the same things they did last year that now everybody's seen, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, we can handle this. I think in the situation Atlanta United's in, it's liberating a little bit to have Rob Valentino in charge at this point, just because you're not really thinking at this moment about building an identity for the long haul. You're getting results. So if that means, and I feel like this comes up every time that Atlanta has played a pressing team over the last 8 seasons, and to varying degrees, although I think they've dramatically improved in how they've dealt with that. The Philadelphia games are a prime example. You can, in this game against St. Louis, not get hung up on we need to win our way. You can just win and try to find the way to win. And if that means you have less possession or 50-50 kind of possession against St. Louis, but they can't do anything with the ball when they have it, and you can get into dangerous spots and make things happen, good. You're not worrying about dominating them and playing your way. I mean, I remember Tata Martino, late 2018, going to Red Bull, and he was bound and determined to show that his style was better. And at that point in the season, you could do that because you were in a good position, and it was a little bit of a showdown, and it didn't work out. Red Bulls got the win. When you saw them play in the postseason later that year, you weren't really as hung up on possession at that point. You were more about where the possession was taking place. So this one, for me, it's just you take what the game gives you. You have to find those combinations that you have. You have to counter press, but I would do it a little differently than you did against DC. Maybe not quite as aggressive, maybe a little bit more of making them play side to side, where I just don't trust them to connect a lot of passes side to side in their own half. I think they're going to turn the ball over for you, and I think you're going to get opportunities that way.
Maddie Cruz for Jason Longshore on a Friday as we get ready for Atlanta United, St. Louis City, SC, and everybody else in Major League Soccer.
You have to yell it?
It's in caps.
I mean, okay. I guess.
Because they play at City Park.
He's done that since they were announced.
It's maybe a little much, a tad much.
It's a step. It's a step in the direction away from the Bruges thing. So,
well, no, that's a good step. That's definitely a good step away from that. That's true.
Well, they had some stupidity down here, so they don't deserve to be yelled.
Yeah, they definitely did. It's not as cool as the Miami FC.
That's true. That is absolutely true. Maddie for Jason, go for it.
I mean, my question has to be, we talked a little bit about players that aren't there. Almada will be out due to yellow card accumulation. Saba isn't there, your designated players. I mean, who are you expecting to really step up in those roles, and who is someone that maybe could surprise us a little bit? I know Luke Brennan has been absolutely outstanding for the first team so far, but is there anyone in your mind that you think is going to really step forward and take charge in this match against St. Louis?
I kind of think that Jay Fortune might be the guy who gets the call here because of the matchup and because of where you are. I would not be surprised because of the way St. Louis plays if we see 3 center backs again and the same 3 center backs again. Wing backs, same. I think you're going to go with McCarty and Muyumba. I do wonder how long McCarty will be able to go and be effective in this one. Going to have to manage his minutes a little bit. Does that mean you hold Fortune and have him come in and replace Dax when that time comes? Or do you start with the 3 of them and then you can drop Fortune when Dax maybe hits that wall in the 60th minute or so, and you could go to a Firmino who can sit deeper? I think that's one thing to keep in mind about Nick Firmino is, he can play the 8. And if you have to have him play that, he did it in the Open Cup game in Charleston, for example. He did it in 2022 with Atlanta United too, quite a bit. He can do the job. And if that's what the job entails, that's what you have to do here. So my gut feeling, and I do not know, I think Jay Fortune might be the one who is vital here, either from the start or off the bench, but I think it might be from the start. Think it might be the 3 central midfielders kind of rotating which one or which 2 step up and get forward. You'll see Dax sit a lot and win that second ball after the aerial duels that St. Louis is going to try to initiate. But I think he could be the key. He's been very, very good. And I think the next step for Jay Fortune is to have that kind of a game where he is the one who turns the result. He's got it in him. I think back to games with Atlanta United too. I think to the AmFam Cup game where he set up Luke Brennan for a goal last season. I think he's got that kind of ability to impact the game higher up the field. It's just been slightly off. Some of the passes that he's looked for, he's tried to create, not quite executed. I mean, we're talking like matter of inches, a foot off on a pass, that kind of stuff. It's time for him to break out and be more than a good central midfielder, a good reserve, a rotation piece. I think he has the ability to step up, and this might be when the door opens for him.
Nick, for Jason, what else is on your mind here on a Friday here on SDH?
Can it be 2 in a row? Is
that
too much to ask? Can it be 2 in a row?
No, absolutely can. I don't think St. Louis is a great team, especially at home. They're kind of beat up. They're very one-dimensional. It's down to, and look, this is the game that St. Louis has wanted to create. It's down to winning your individual moments. It's really down to that here. So if that's, Rios or TRA or both battling it out with their center backs, if that's your center backs winning the duels and not letting Joao Klaus get into dangerous spots, I think the little bit of a wild card when it comes to St. Louis is Edward Leuven, their central midfielder, is very good. And when play breaks down, he can play a little bit. They just don't look for those situations enough. So I think what the deal is coming in. You've got to win your duels. And if you do, and again, then you execute, you can win this game. There's nothing to be afraid of in this game on the road. If you can go to Fort Lauderdale and beat them straight up, and then you can go to DC on talking about bad pitches, that thing. And just not a good night at the office in any way except for Almada's moment of brilliance and Gazan's great save. And you can get a win there. So you can win back-to-back on the road in very, very different ways. Yeah, you can go to St. Louis and win.
What other storylines are you looking at to this weekend across the board in the sport? Doesn't necessarily have to be Atlanta United and St. Louis. What other stories and matches are you staring at this weekend when you're not studying for Atlanta and St. Louis and being on a plane and trying to get home?
U.S. men's national team Sunday against Bolivia. I've said it all week, and I think there's a lot of people jumping a step further that I don't think is necessarily fair when we talk about the USMNT. They have to get out of the group, and they are the team in the Copa America with the most pressure on them because of that. They have to get out of the group. There's no excuses if they don't. Uruguay is a team that can win this tournament. So keep that in mind when you get to that game 3 of the group stage. If they don't beat Uruguay, it's not a disaster. So let's slow down a little bit on that part. But you have to get through Bolivia and Panama. You have to survive and win the group. And I mean, Nick, I mentioned this on AST last night. You know, the Italians have a different approach when it comes to these kind of tournaments, and the Argentines do too, in that, yeah, you want to dominate every group stage game. You'd love to. You'd love to win all of them, 3-0, not have to sweat. It's all good. It's beautiful. You get to play a whole bunch of players. It's about surviving in the group. It's about getting out. And then the tournament starts. That's how the Italian national team's always felt. That's how Argentina feels. You get out of the group, however you got to do it. If it's ugly, so what? Did you survive? Are you still playing? Okay, cool. Others went home. Now you have to then win those knockout games. So it's twofold. The U.S. has to get out of the group. If they do, job done. Minimum job done. I think too many other people are now saying, and it's been, I guess the memo went out. I didn't get it. I don't get those memos. That they need what are we calling it? A substantial win. He needs a special win. Berhalter needs a special win. This program needs
a signature win.
A signature win. Yeah. Sorry. Again, I didn't get the memo, so I didn't remember what.
Greg Berhalter has to go win the Chick-fil-A kickoff game.
That's not a signature win. Don't ever call the Chick-fil-A kickoff game a signature win, Jarrett. That's ridiculous.
Gotta win the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl is definitely not a signature win. It's a fun win. It's a fun win. Well, I guess if
Bahamas Bowl.
It was a signature win for Boise State that one year.
Well, okay, fair enough. But you're trying to go bigger. So a signature win is what you need. You might not get the chance to get a signature win in this tournament. You can't control what happens when you get out of the group. What happens if you come in second and you have a crazy surprise in the other group and you play somebody different than Colombia? That's not your control. So then let's not start rewriting narratives. If you don't beat Uruguay, don't start calling that, well, you had your chance to get your signature win, so it's a failure. Everybody needs to go. No. Let's stop this nonsense. You control what you can control. You play Bolivia, you need to win. You play Panama, you should win. You shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't do what England does and get a goal and then go in and try to build a fort out of Legos and be
Scotland
defensive.
Does that too. Let's not cut hairs here.
Well,
everybody
Scotland,
on the aisles.
No, hold up, Jared. I know you're very emotional about your Scots. Hold up, but there's a major difference when we're talking about who England has on the field, especially higher up the field, and who Scotland has. I don't like it when Scotland does it, but I understand it a whole lot more than when England does it, when they have more talent than almost anybody in that whole tournament. It's gutless.
Yeah. If you put England in pennies and another national team in pennies and said, okay, without saying a word of who's who should win this game, I would say like 8 out of 10 times you're going to point at the England squad and be like, them. Yeah. They should win. How Southgate manages a game just warps reality on a regular basis. It is that level of buffoonery that I don't even know how to solve for it. I think the U.S. does not necessarily need to go gangbusters in the group stage. If anything, it could
get out.
Get out. Yeah, just survive.
Yeah,
get through. I think Italy has done that. Remember in the 2006 World Cup run, there were games that Italy squeaked by in group.
Think about the last World Cup. Argentina lost the opener.
Yeah.
To who? To who did they lose to? That's who they lost to.
Uh-huh.
Did they win the tournament? Were they pretty happy? Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's just survive.
I'm pretty sure some of them are still drunk from that game.
They are. All of them, everyone, still drunk.
They are.
No, the U.S., they can't go into this and be negative in the way that they play, in my opinion, even against the better teams. You've got to play the way that I think Berhalter wants them to play. I don't think he has that Southgate mentality that, Southgate is always talked about comparing what he's kind of wanting to do in these tournaments to what France has done, where France hasn't been wild and expansive early on in tournaments. But the difference is they've won things. Difference is they're getting to finals on a regular basis. England's not doing that. So for them to get even more timid in these games, that's not the example for the U.S. You need to go and wreck Bolivia. It's not going to be easy, but you still need to go in with that mindset. Panama is not going to be afraid of you. That game next week at the Benz is one of the biggest games for the U.S. men's national team in a long, long time. Because if you win after taking care of business on Sunday, which you should, then you're into the next stage. You're good. If you don't, you're going to have to sweat against Marcelo Bielsa and one of the best teams in the world right now. And that's not the life you want. So that game against Panama is huge, but you don't get there before Sunday against Bolivia. And Bolivia is not going to make it easy for you. They will drive every bus from La Paz up to the stadium, park it in a semicircle around the goal, and you're going to have to find a way to win. I do not want to hear anybody start the nonsense BS if they win 1-0 and it's a game where the U.S. has 15 shots and Bolivia has 3 and it's a late second half goal that ends up being the difference. I don't want to hear anybody crying. You got to win. That's number one. Win the game. Bolivia will be completely and utterly thrilled if it is close late. They don't care about, they're not coming in expecting to win get 3 points. They're not expecting to get out of the group. The U.S. is. So you got to win. Number one. And you got to get out of this group. So that game Sunday is huge, and it'll set up an even bigger game next week.
I also feel like, too, with the game next Thursday, not even to jump ahead, but I mean, it's one of your first games where you're going to be playing in your new home. That's huge. And that's going to be a storyline to kind of follow as well, especially moving into that matchup against Panama.
There's a lot of storylines to it, and that's definitely going to be one because you would expect that the U.S. men will be playing games here on a fairly regular basis with the training facility and headquarters and all that being here. So it's big, and you don't want to start that on a negative. And I just look at Panama in this tournament. It feels like Panama has had a lot of success against the U.S. in the last decade, and they have players who can hurt you. That game's going to be more open than you might think, and you're going to have to manage it. But you don't want to go into that off of a draw or a loss. You want to go into that with 3 points in the bag. If you draw Panama, you're going to have a pretty good shot. If you end up with 4 points going into the last game, you're going to have a pretty good shot of getting through. It's not going to be a guarantee. A lot of it is going to depend on what Panama does against Uruguay in game 1. You're going to have a pretty good understanding of what it will take to advance walking in the door on Thursday. And that game's just huge. And it's different than what we saw last night. Last night felt like a party, a celebration, as we've seen with Argentina over the years. They will lose opening games in tournaments and still go on and win. They were good last night. They were really good in the second half. I mentioned it on AST. I thought Canada did a very good job for a long period of time. Canada's going to be a problem with Jesse Marsch. I think what he wants to do suits the players that they have. It's going to take time, but they could get out of this group because I think they can give Chile and Peru a lot of problems if they play with confidence going into those games. Argentina got the job done, but it felt like a party. U.S. and Panama should not feel like a party at all. It's going to be tense. It's going to be a difficult game at times. And the U.S. has to manage it, and it's going to be a really big test. If they get the win, nobody will call it a signature win, even though they probably should.
Broadcast plans for you, sir, on a very busy weekend.
Let's see. Where do I want to start? We're going to start tonight in Decatur. WPSL website is where you can watch. Go to WPSL TV, 7 o'clock, or come out to Decatur High School. Decatur and Tormenta live, a very cool friendly between two of the top women's teams in the state. Saturday, I'll get on a plane not too early in the morning. It actually works out pretty well. I'll get into St. Louis right about lunchtime, and we'll be on the air at 7:30 Eastern for Five Stripes Countdown. Kickoff at 8:40 from St. Louis. Then I'll get on another plane. I'll come back. Then Sunday, a watch party for both Decatur FC and the U.S. men's national team against Bolivia. And then I'll be on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app starting at 9 o'clock, a 2-hour AST breaking everything down from the weekend. A lot of talk about the U.S. men, some talk about Decatur, some talk about Atlanta United, some talk about the rest of the games and the tournaments. That's Sunday night. O'Sullivan's in Decatur. If you want to come hang out, you want to watch the games, or you can listen on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app.
And get my BLT when I go to O'Sullivan's with their
You
friends.
also can listen to me on the match for Chattanooga and Decatur. It'll be a lot of fun.
That's right. We will be listening to that inside of O'Sullivan's.
Yep. So Maddie's got the Impact today, and she's got DFC in Chattanooga on Sunday. You've got DFC
A lot.
in Atlanta tonight, St. Louis tomorrow, O'Sullivan's on Sunday, and then it all kicks back in again. As always, partner, it was great to be able to experience Argentina in an international competition with you yesterday. It was a very cool moment.
That second goal made everything worth it. That was beautiful to watch. It was a special day. You know, I mean, for me, and I fell in love with this game because of Argentina, and I would have never guessed when I was a 9-year-old kid watching that World Cup semifinal that Argentina would be playing in Atlanta at some point in my life, because why would that have happened in 1986? Things have changed a little bit, and it's amazing that now this is starting to become the new normal, that these games are happening. These kinds of storylines are happening. The world's eyes are on Atlanta. I mean, seeing whether it was TSN or TIC or all the different networks that were in the building last night all over town, it's crazy. So, like, I know it's really easy to get caught up get caught into things and gripe and want this to be better and want that to be better. I mean, for me, like, going back to the beginning, it's insane to think that this is happening. Even going back 10 years, it's mind-blowing that this is happening. I mean, the biggest game that we had 10 years ago was an Open Cup run from the Silverbacks and games at Silverbacks Park that were packed with 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Like, the game done changed, and it is amazing. So I know we want it to be better, and I know we get caught up on things. Don't take it for granted. Don't take this stuff for granted, because we are extremely lucky that this is just the new normal now.
No doubt about it.
I had to explain that Open Cup game to the production crew at the Apotheos game last week.
With the Colorado one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
they didn't know about it.
Oh, that was something.
Yeah. People who were trying to get off 285 and the off ramp, and people were ending up just kind of stopping their cars and watching it.
Well, that was the RSL and Chicago.
That's the RSL
games.
one here.
The Colorado game.
Colorado one out. Yeah.
The Colorado game was away with all the red cards and the coaching staff sending
Eric
in
Winalda
instructions.
sent off.
Oh, all kinds of people were sent off. You can't just say one. I mean, it was like 3 players and 2 coaches, and they're sitting.
And it's on YouTube someplace. And so, seriously, go watch it.
Yeah, go watch that, and just watch for one of the players on the bench for the Silverbacks continually going to check his bag on the bench, because that was how they were getting instructions in. It was amazing.
Yep. All right. We will see you tonight, partner, at Decatur, and we'll run from there.
Adios.